Welcome back. The vice president is doubling down on his defense of the young Republicans involved in a leaked chat that used hundreds of slurs and joked about slavery, gas chambers, and rape. On social media, J.D. Vance says that he refused to join the pearl clutching and played whataboutism with Democrats. But after a night to sleep on it, this is how he described the Republican operatives, at least one of whom is an actual elected official.
Grow up. I'm sorry. Focus on the real issues. Don't focus on what kids say in group chats. The reality is that kids do stupid things, especially young boys. They tell edgy, offensive jokes. Like, that's what kids do. And I really don't want us to grow up in a country where a kid telling a stupid joke, telling a very offensive stupid joke, is cause to ruin their lives. And at some point, we're all going to have to say, enough of this BS.
Now, keep in mind, the texters referred to black people as monkeys and watermelon people. They fantasized about raping enemies and driving them to suicide. They supported slavery and sending political opponents to gas chambers to, quote, watch people burn now. Now, here is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez at CNN's town hall tonight talking about Republicans and the influence that they have on social media.
They have been successful because they have also been very clear, especially digitally, about what they believe. That women are inferior, they do not deserve equal rights, that they believe that LGBTQ Americans are subhuman, that they believe and are circulating disgusting racial and white supremacist messaging that they are able to get away with digitally and online.
Joining us at the table is Kmele Foster. He's the editor-at-large at Tangle. Kmele, what do you make of what she said there and how it relates to this conversation about the liberty and the freedom with which these guys thought that they could spew this kind of stuff without any kind of consequences?
Yeah, well, thank you for having me, Abby, first and foremost. I have a lot of issues with the conversation around this particular story. I would tend to agree the comments in the thread ought to be condemned universally. But this is like kind of what you would expect, this kind of idiot, LARPing, edgelord nonsense inside of a private group chat. I think the words you used a moment ago, that they think they could say this sort of thing risk-free, consequence-free. Well, they were saying it in private. And I'm sure they were saying different things in public. Do they mean these things authentically? In some cases, they almost certainly do. There has been a resurgence of white nationalist sentiment in this country. I think it's interesting, though, to try to trace this back and to think honestly about how we got to here. And I do think that a lot of the renewed interest in race and identity things for both noble purposes and otherwise has actually helped to create the circumstances that we see now. That is not erasing any of the responsibility that people have for embracing and endorsing these kinds of sentiments, even in private group chats where they're doing this kind of idiotic locker room talk. They deserve to face consequences. But I do think that J.D. Vance's comments about this are worth actually focusing in on for a moment. This has shades of that whole eating the cats, eating the dogs nonsense from during the campaign cycle.
I mean, he would know all about that.
He is a capable spokesperson for this administration, and I mean that as both a compliment and a dig, in the sense that he seems willing to go out and defend just about anything. It's weird, the places where they decide to draw the lines. I'm not sure why they decide to draw it here. I do think the hypocrisy he's underscoring, though, is real as well.
I know why, because I've seen the places where these comments have been defended. And I think J.D. Vance is looking down the line at 2028, and he's looking at who he's calling kids right now are going to be the Republican operatives and the sort of the future of the Republican Party. And I think he's lining himself up. But you make an important point. The comments in the group chat are terrible and stupid, but I find it way more interesting that J.D. Vance has chosen to defend it than these guys that nobody knows or cares about. Why did he choose that this is suddenly the sort of thing that he chalks up to a youthful indiscretion when some of the people in this chat were like a year or two younger than him? He's 41.
Hard to say. Have to ask him. I'll tell you, did not defend it. I mean, the head of Young Republicans.
Right.
They exiled these folks right away. We took
Right.
swift action, and I appreciate that accountability. I'm not going to defend it. I didn't even read some of these tweets, but they sound. I've heard they're bad, and I believe it. I bet a lot of these guys are the same people who troll me online for the most part. So I guarantee it's a lot of the same folks. On the other hand, why you're seeing some Republicans shrug their shoulders? I mean, I'll tell you why. Here's what they would maybe. Here's their sentiment. We just watched Charlie Kirk get shot in the neck. You know, we watched our president, while he was campaigning, almost get killed. A bullet whizzed by his head. So there's real violence, and then there's this disgusting, despicable stuff that is said in private. And like, it is disgusting, despicable. You're not going to see me try and defend it. But I do. But I'll give you that perspective from some people who might feel that way.
Ashley?
Look, I think what happened to Charlie Kirk was awful. I said it. I think an assassination attempt on anybody, including the then candidate, Trump, and now president. It's awful. I also think that there's a different conversation, right? So I don't take any comfort that this is done in private, because if you say the N-word in private, you think it in public. And that means that at some point in my life, I may be sitting across somebody who thinks I'm the N-word. And so that person may be the person who has to give me a job one day, or as a police officer that pulls me over one day, despite being articulate, or he knows what I'm talking about.
Gets the call back.
Is that an inside joke?
It is inside. It's between me and the brother.
You gotta watch the show to know what she's talking about.
Watch Table of Five. Last time we were on together.
Right.
But that's what I mean, and that was what it manifests. It means that could be somebody's teacher one day. Or it means that could be somebody's congressperson one day. And what am I supposed to think as a Black American, as a person who could be called the N-word, now I think it's great that the young Republicans push folks out. And I also think it's important on the left when we say, or not we, because I don't do that, but when people say terrible things, that those things be condemned. And that's what I was saying earlier, is like, we got to call balls and strikes.
Yeah.
But there's something bigger than it's just being private. These people live their lives publicly every day. And if you walk through your life and you don't know somebody thinks you're a watermelon person, or that you should be raped to the point of suicide, what are we doing?
Well, there are people saying things like this in public, and some of these people are conservative adjacent, or they would perhaps just describe themselves as conservatives, like Nick Fuentes. And Nick Fuentes is a guy who has been on a number of prominent podcasts in recent weeks, who just today announced that he's got some major announcement and will be sitting down with some other conservative figure. Conservatives have to know that this is taking place in the ether right now.
I mean, I'm like,
and speaking out about this.
I'm like on the front lines of that battle. I think
And
you probably know.
No, Congressman, I know you. I'm not directing this at you in particular. I'm just saying that we should be speaking out about it.
I mean, I have often argued that, this is not about canceling people, but just creating the boundaries of your movement. I mean, would you say that Republicans need to establish?
Well, of course you're right.
Just as Democrats do. I'm not excluding Democrats from this, but just as Democrats
you have freedom of association. Yeah. Like, if you say a bunch of nasty things and you're part of my organization, I have every right to kick you out.
But you're right. We should. This is disgusting and vile, and we should establish that there is a boundary line that is not here, that is in front of it. And Ashley's right. It doesn't matter if it's public or private. If you say it privately, you think it publicly. That's exactly right.
It became public.
And I live in Virginia. I'm working on the Attorney General's race right now. And the Democratic nominee for Attorney General sent text messages wishing the Republican speaker would get 2 bullets to the head. He said he hoped that his wife would see their babies die in his arms.
Unacceptable.
Toddlers that he knew. But yet, Abby Spanberger, the nominee for governor, will not ask him to withdraw from the race. Yeah. She will not withdraw her endorsement.
And
so that's the line.
Can I just make one interesting note about that? Because we may be in 2 or 3 years coming back to this conversation, because when he made those comments, he was a state legislator, and now he's running for a higher office. There were elected officials in this group chat, and I'll want to know 3 years from now whether you also want them to step aside from their roles, because we might be in this very position. Can I play one quick thing? I want to play a little bit more of J.D. Vance. This is what J.D. Vance was saying about. He thinks that the real story is who leaked this and ruining the lives of these young people.
Sorry.
I'm 41 years old. I have 3 kids. I grew up in a different world, right? Where not most of the stupid things that I did when I was a teenager and a young adult, they're not on the internet. Like, I'm going to tell my kids, especially my boys, don't put things on the internet. Like, be careful with what you post. If you put something in a group chat, assume that some scumbag is going to leak it in an effort to try to cause you harm or cause your family harm.
Okay, J.D. Vance is married to a brown woman. He has mixed race children, and that is his response to this. Horrible racism. It's beyond locker room talk. I'm a white woman that has lived in a red state my entire life, and I can tell you when I'm around white people, they test the racist water. They test it on people like you all the time. And they'll try to say off-color things. I put my hand up. It absolutely happens. And you're fortunate that maybe you haven't experienced this.
Can I just say, literally this August, a white person said the N-word in front of me.
The vice president of the United States,
these were
is
not
horrible.
Kids. These were grown men.
Some of them are 40 years old.
If they
and some of them are
committed
women.
a crime, they would be prosecuted as adults. They were not children.
Well, look, I mean,
they're not stupid kids.
It's not kids.
They can
They're not
vote.
kids.
They're not kids, and a couple. Look, a couple of people just had their visas revoked by this administration for saying things about Charlie Kirk. This administration also tried to kick people out of the country for protesting on college campuses, pro-Palestinian protests. I just can't. I don't see how these guys who are not college, not all of them were college age, some of them were, but not all of them were, are somehow exempt from even basic levels of accountability, which is just to say, this is wrong, this is bad, but all those other people can get kicked out of the country,
I think a lot of
lose
them
their
were
jobs,
fired.
all of that stuff.
I do think there's been accountability.
Yeah, I'm talking about the vice president.
Exactly. The buck stops with him.
His view,
What do you
it
want him to
seems.
do? Like, legally, what would he do?
I mean, I just think the
He
vice
should stand
president
out against racism and stand up
he
for his brown
literally
kids.
said, I don't think that
his
people
brown
should
wife.
have
think
their
that's an
lives
odd way to
ruined.
phrase
I know,
it.
but we're talking about two different things. You're talking about like
I
real
think he could have
accountability.
said, I think a different way he could have put it, Abby, was, I'm not going to tell my kids, don't do something in a group chat so you don't get caught. It should be, don't do it.
Right.
Because calling somebody the N-word is racist and wrong. And let's teach the history about the N-word.
Listen, as a parent,
that is what the second person.
I don't know many parents who would look at a situation like this and tell their kid, the lesson here is just don't say it where people can catch you. The lesson here is don't say things like this.
But it's also not don't say the N-word because it's racist. I think it's actually, we have to be more specific about these things. It is dehumanizing.
Yes.
People are individuals. They have their dignity on the basis of their individual characteristics. J.D. Vance isn't letting down his children. He is humiliating himself. And he isn't letting down his children on account of their being brown or his wife being brown. I really do think that there is a kind of obvious obscenity to the way that we talk about people, the nounification of everything, where these identity silos are where we imagine people live. That's the conversation we were having the other day.
I agree.
It was misconstrued as me suggesting Barack Obama isn't a black man. What I'm saying is Barack Obama is an individual. We all are. That is what our dignity ought to be apportioned on the basis of. J.D. Vance could make a case like that. That's pretty straightforward. It doesn't require condemning anyone.
Right. But you think Barack Obama is an individual.
I know he's an individual.
Those people saying the N-word do not. And so we
that
have
may
to
be-
live.
that may be
We
true.
have to live in
And so
reality, right? And
and
so
the
we can
reality
be
is-
aspirational,
Right.
but we also have to live as black people walking down the street.
But that's just that the aspiration is to be beyond race, to exist beyond the
But we
brown
don't.
paper
Let's
bag
just
test.
know- we don't.
Let's
and
just note
exist
the
beyond.
journey
No, I
that
do.
J.D. Vance
And I
has
think that
made.
is an important choice that one
These
can make
people
as an
saying,
individual.
I love Hitler, and he used to say Donald Trump is America's Hitler. So let's look at the devolution of J.D. Vance in this. I mean, not that long ago, he was whistleblowing about the man who he now serves under.
Seems willing to say about just about anything.
Yes, and now he is defending the people in this group text that are talking about gassing people, they're talking about ovens, and they're saying, I love Hitler.
He's not quite defending them so much as obfuscating.
Saying, don't get
But
caught.
I do think that I think the difference is meaningful.
I
but
think
in
the
either
signal.
case,
I
it's
think the
humiliating.
signal to what the racists heard
Brad,
is him
Brad,
defending
quick
him
last word.
and giving it a green light. That's what I think.
We're in a world where the counterpunch is the only move anybody knows. That's why Abby Spanberger won't kick Jay Jones off his ticket.
Sure.
That's why J.D. Vance felt compelled to not defend, but obfuscate, if you will. We're never going to get anywhere with a lot of our problems as long as that is the answer. There's a great chance for people to do that right now. You can denounce these guys, and Abby can kick Jay off the ticket.
All right. I mean, it's a very fair point. Coming up next for us, Bernie Sanders talked about it. It's supposed to be a major anti-Trump protest, but Republicans are calling this weekend's No Kings rally a terrorist event. We'll discuss. Plus, Zohran Mamdani goes on Fox News with a message for Donald Trump and a bizarre back and forth over Hamas. Stay with us.